Hey, what's going on, parents? Happy Tuesday. We are back again in part 4 of our series called In the World. If you've missed it so far, jump back and start from the very beginning and just listen through. It'll sound a bit like a 40-minute conversation, which is great. We are here with Joseph Kellogg. If you didn't know, Joseph is awesome. He has some of the best calves you'll ever see. You remember how much we used to give you a hard time about your calves? Yeah, it's great.
They're pretty large.
Running back calves.
Yeah.
If you didn't know.
I'm a child of the 90s. Like, I was a teenager in the 90s, so I rollerbladed.
Oh, okay.
You know? I know it's coming back, but I was like inline skater.
Oh.
Or now I tell people, kind of my dad/pastor joke is, when you take up your cross daily, you'll have calves like this.
Ooh. Dang. See, I didn't have rollerblades. I had the where's the two rows?
Roller skates.
Roller skates. There we go. Yeah.
Like Sonic drive-through, you know what I'm saying? Old school.
I need that. Well, Joseph, we originally had planned to make this a 3-part series, but then you and I were just talking. We were like, hold on, we think there's more kind of left on the table in this conversation. So we kind of started talking about the rule aspect and relationship tension. You know, like kind of that tension between the rules and relationship, and obviously, as a teenager ages, as your kid ages, that kind of relationship aspect is kind of tough to transition, get used to. Where is that within the rules, and how does this kind of factor into the preparation that we've been talking about?
Yeah, I think, because if you're just hearing this, what can happen sometimes, you have like quick course correction.
And reaction.
You know, like, I'm not doing a good job, honey. We're doing Bible study every day next week. You know, like, Mom, are we doing it at Starbucks? And it's interesting to kind of stay in the book of John, chapter 17, verse 21. He's like, hey, I pray, again, this is a prayer of Jesus. He said, I pray that they will be one, just as you and I are one.
Yeah. As
you are in me, Father, I am in you. And may they be in us so that the world will believe you sent me. And Mom, Dad, like, we're in this together with our kids.
Yeah.
And so we embrace the mess. I think, to not go into detail, but there's been some shocking moments as parents where, like, and you're disappointed. And you wish you would have done it differently.
Yeah.
But we can't get in the DeLorean and go back in time. And, or for some of the parents, the old Cher song, if I can turn back time, right? Come on. Come on, Cher.
Believe in love after love.
So it's funny. This episode's kind of started out kind of like talked about roller skating, calves, and some Cher.
Yeah.
But I remember as a teenager, like, messing up. And I remember, like, my parents going at me, and I'm like, just discipline me, because I just remember going, I can't turn it, I can't change it.
Yeah.
So, like, to me is, how do you absorb the shock and to look at it? And I think this has helped because I've been in youth ministry as long as I have, and Will would tell you, like, man, when you're in the life of a teenager, there's just ups and downs. Again, Mom and Dad, if there's anything over these last few weeks, don't forget what it was like to be a teenager.
Yeah.
Don't forget, like, let your past inform your future. Like, don't forget, like, this is what I did when I was alone with the opposite sex.
Right.
Oh, I should probably,
Yeah.
And so I love the old axiom, which axiom's like a leadership principle. Rules without relationship lead to rebellion.
Yeah.
And so I would just say, in preparation, the best way to prepare someone is to be present.
Right. Yeah.
And I think we live in a world that's like, watch a YouTube video on that. Yeah. Watch, and there's so much information, but nothing beats presence.
Yeah.
Nothing beats that hand on, and so I think embrace the mess of your teenager, not just a messy room, but just the mess of, like, the ups and downs. That 13-year-old or 15-year-old, even though you might have told them you shouldn't like boys, like boys or girls, or you shouldn't date yet, they're going to have crushes, and that crush is going to break their heart. And the worst thing as a parent to be like, well, that's petty. That's not a big deal. Remember when you were a teenager? I remember a girl, we broke up in like 8th grade, and I didn't eat for 2 weeks. I was just heartbroken.
Right.
She was the one.
Right. But that's not a time for parents to, like, put them down, even jokingly.
You're dumb. Like, you weren't even,
you'll get over it. Which is true. They will get over it.
But your words have power.
Yeah.
But also, parents, your ears in this season of your life actually have more power. Listen. assess. I can just tell you, as a dad, first I'm an Enneagram 8. I'm a verbal processor. I want to fix it. Let's talk about it now.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn with 3 daughters, you know what? She doesn't want to talk right now. But also, what you ignore, you accept. I'm not going to let her live there and not talk about it, but we're going to talk about it in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm going to let her process or So I think, and again, if you're in a family unit that mom and dad are in the same home, be on the same page.
Yeah.
Because you don't want mom saying this and dad saying this. And that's the tension of marriage. But really, I think as we were talking through
Even
this.
harder in blended families.
Yes.
Yeah. Which, if you're a blended family out there, jump back to episode 70. We have Summer Butler. She has amazing content for that and kind of managing those tensions.
Yeah, you're right. And it's one of those things of like, no matter the family unit, communication is just huge.
Huge, yeah.
And so get the strategy, but also listen where they're at. And I think why we extended and did one more episode is because we were talking through like, man, we're in the world, but not of it. And I think it would have been easy for parents to kind of like, man, and even you, we talked about how it's not too late. And so you have to get in it with them. You can start over, you can start new, but it might be a little bit at a time. Yeah. But also the biggest thing is embrace their mess with grace.
Yeah.
Embrace their mess with grace. Teenage life is messy. And can I tell you, adulting's messy. Life is messy. But man, embrace it with grace. Don't accept the behavior, but love them for who they are. And don't freak out.
Yes.
Literally, don't freak out.
That's the number one advice we give to parents of like when either your student is telling you something or you catch them doing something, like just don't freak out. Freak out later. Don't freak out on them, And I love what you're talking about. Like, hey, she needs time to process. We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sometimes delayed consequences are better because then, as a parent, you're not then disciplining within your emotions, but you're thinking through it, and it's kind of how we've talked about it with being a plan, you know? And I love so much of what you're saying of like, have the relationship and not just the rules.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think of when I was in high school, and the only time I talked to the principal was when my behavior was in question. But I loved my basketball coach because there was that relationship there.
Yeah.
And he would push me on my behavior as well as like what I was doing on the basketball court. And I received that so much more because he was in the trenches with me, because there was this relational depth where literally the only time I talked to the principal is when somebody sent me there, so don't be the parent that you're like, the student's behavior sends you to the parent. It's like, no, like be the coach in it with them.
Yeah. In your presence, in your belief, we have haters. There's going to be haters. What your teenagers face if they have social media, people, we live in a society that we're not cheering each other on enough. And your kids need you to be their biggest fan. Now, don't have like if your kid really can't sing, what I'm saying? You have to
don't lie.
You have to be a truth teller.
Right.
But I just think, man, believe in them.
Yeah.
And when they fall, believe in them. And like, hey, man, you know what? Galatians 6:9, don't get tired in doing good. Like, man, you know what? Hey, let's keep going. Don't quit. There's a new movie that just released on Netflix, and I don't know the name of it, but it's about this girl. It's a true story. This 16-year-old girl that sailed solo around the world.
Oh, wow.
And youngest person to ever do it. And the tension, it's interesting in the movie, Will, is the mom and dad, like people were coming at him saying like, you are not good parents. You're letting your child sail, like, and she almost like didn't make it. Like, it's a beautiful film. But I was watching it, getting emotional, going, man, my job as a parent is to help bring fuel to the dreams of my kids. They should go further than I ever did because we helped prepare them for that. Again, don't be crazy, you know what I'm saying? But don't freak out either. How do you embrace because there's enough people in their world telling them they can't. How can you come alongside them and be their guide and say, man, you know what? How can I help you? How can I help you accomplish that? And then some of you might know in the back of your head, they're not going to be good at this. But then let's figure that out together.
Yeah.
And then you get to be with them on the journey. And so I just think it's like, just be with them.
Yeah.
And what's cool, and some of you, this isn't counseling time, but some of you might not have great relationship with your parents today. And it could have been the way they did things or the way you did things. But I just have always said this in youth ministry. Youth ministry doesn't have an expiration date.
Yeah.
And parenting doesn't either.
Yeah.
And I just know it's the coolest thing is when you see kids that still have depth in relationship with their parents when they're in their 30s and their 40s. And for some of those teenagers, I know they think they know it all. And they think they know it all.
Yeah.
Just don't be a jerk. Love them, embrace it, and never forget you were once a teenager, and embrace the mess of those teenage years with grace. Be present with them. Be involved in their world. You're their mom and dad. You can go through their room. There's no such thing as privacy. Like, what I'm saying? Like, you can go through their phone. You're there to help them, prepare them. And I just think that, man, you're gonna see your kids not just fall in love with Jesus. I want my children. I want them to fall in love with Jesus. I want them to love the church, and I want them to know that then they have a relationship with me, and it's for life.
Yeah.
And so, man, I just think we can do that.
I love
we're
that.
better together.
I love that.
Don't freak out.
Don't freak out. No. One of my favorite quotes from Andy Stanley is when he was talking about parenting. Is he said, "Always parent towards relationship. You don't want a kid who cannot wait to get out of your house." So I love that. Relationship over everything.
I asked my kids, hey, send me some things. It's funny. All my kids said, you have rules. I really like, you have rules, but aren't strict, but you're allowed us to do things. And what I mean by that is I was raised, I'm a second generation Christian, and my parents, it was religious. And we did, like, the rules weren't really they weren't helping prepare me.
Yeah.
It was just no. And I think it's okay for our kids to say why.
Yeah.
And,
Right.
And it's not because I said so.
Yeah.
That's not preparing them.
Yeah.
Hey, why? Well, man, because I want to prepare you, or I want to protect you. And so teach your kids to ask questions because if they can't feel safe and ask you questions,
they're going to ask them somewhere.
They're going to ask them somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want them to be online and with some weirdo.
No, you're the best place for all of their questions, parents. Joseph, thank you again, man. Seriously, thank you for your wisdom.
Welcome.
Thank you for your time. And parents, thank you for tuning in. Make sure to share this with anybody who would be helpful for. As always, you can do this. You're not alone. God is with you, and so are we. Have a great week.